Hey everybody, welcome back to a midweek stream. Today we're going to be doing another compositing like a VFX Pro stream. And today we'll be doing a shot from the ActionVFX library of creating a burning building or a burning room. My name is Connor Thomas if you guys are new here, and let's go ahead and mute this so that way I don't hear myself double. I just got myself up down here so I could see the comments. If you guys have any questions or any suggestions, it's always very helpful. But hi, my name is Connor. I'm a VFX supervisor. I work on films that primarily like indie films that go to Netflix or HBO Max, or sorry, Max, they changed the name. But I also do a bit of freelance, and I started doing this YouTube channel on the side just to help educate people on how to do more professional visual effects and the kind of like pipelines and workflows that go into everything. So today we'll be breaking down a new shot that we found from the ActionVFX website. Let's see, let's pull up this here. So ActionVFX has all of this wonderful practice footage. You can find a link of all of the stuff that I'll be using in this tutorial today from the ActionVFX link right here. It is a referral link, but it doesn't cost you anything extra if you click through that link. And on here they have a lot of great footage that you can use for different practice and building up your reel and creating professional visual effects. So go ahead and check this out. There's a lot of other shots. We did this one last week, I guess it was either last week or the week before, I can't remember. This soccer stadium shot, and today we will be doing man crawling in a burning room. So these are the two shots that they provide for this. A lot of suggested assets as well that you can purchase for this particular shot. But we will be getting started here on this shot right here. Hey, Big Bread, welcome. Would I ask you one question? Go for it. Ask any questions that you like. That is the purpose of these live streams. So I'm going to go ahead and get started here, though. I'm going to do this in DaVinci Resolve, is the software I'm going to create the plates in, and then we'll move over into Nuke, and we will start compositing into Nuke. And as usual for these midweek streams, I only have till like 10 o'clock because I have to go do my real job. So, but we'll see how much we can get done today on this stream here. And if we have to, we can come back later and continue this shot maybe tomorrow or something like that. So make sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any future streams that we're doing. Without a further ado, let's go ahead and jump on into it. I already downloaded the footage here. Let's see, actually, that's funny. That's not supposed to be here. So, the footage, I already downloaded right here. This is the original source material that you get from downloading from the website. And this is just kind of like a ProRes file, and if we double click it, we can actually already see here. I have a whole tutorial talking about color space management and how to create proper visual effects plates, but you can see on the website that this says that it is Rec 709 ACES output. So we're going to want to create our visual effects plates with that in mind, and we're going to go ahead and create plates so that way we can use them inside of our compositing software. So without further ado, let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to drop in this footage directly into DaVinci Resolve. And there's a few things that I'm going to want to do in here once it's here. Is the material dropped in, and it's going to probably change our frame rate. And if it doesn't, then we'll actually probably have to do that beforehand. So our frame rate is going to be 23976. 24 probably won't be problematic if we have it as such, but it is proper to kind of keep everything in that in the world. I think also, let's just double check. Would they say they're at 2048 by 1080? So let's go ahead and just set that up here. 2048 by 1080. And then for our color management settings, we're going to switch this over to ACES CC. And if we have our ACES 1.3 selected, our input transform, we could set this to Rec 709. So let's go ahead and find that. And we know this is Rec 709 because it says it on our website. Right here, it's Rec 709 ACES output. And then for our output transform, let's swap this to ACES CG. Again, I have a whole tutorial talking about this, so if you want to watch this more in depth, or see the everything quicker inside of a single tutorial, then that's what I would do there. And I can even show you where that's located. You go to like my YouTube channel, I upload videos on here, and this video right here, I talk about the color space, and I talk about, you know, using this footage and importing it properly, and all this stuff. So if you do want to check this out, feel free to check it out. It's on the on my YouTube channel. So okay, with that being said, we're gonna go ahead and use this inside of our scene. So I'll just set that up to gamma, and then we'll go ahead and hit the save button, hit change, and now if we go ahead and import our footage into this scene, actually it's interesting. I think this frame rate of this particular shot is 24 frames per second. And you'll notice that our image over here is now darker, and that's because it is converting it to an ACES CG linear kind of color. It's not viewing it as sRGB like we would normally have on our shot. So I'm going to cut out this end ActionVFX frame right here. And again, you guys can check out all of this footage, a link description below, that we will be using today. So I'm going to go ahead and use this as our plate. Normally this would come to us as from an edit of somebody's film, and so it would already be cut, so potentially it would start on like this frame or something like that. But I'm going to use the entirety of the shot since this isn't for an actual project. I'm going to change the name of this as well. So we'll go ahead and change the name of the VFX shot to today's date, because that's our project name, is today's date. I know, not very original, but we'll change that to our project name, and then our shot 1, and then I'm going to call this BG1, which is just our background plate 1. And this helps us to differentiate. If we had multiple assets that we were using, for instance, let's say there was a CG element or a green screen element or something like that, then those would be FG materials, foreground materials that we would be compositing in. And this helps the compositors distinguish between what the main visual effects plate is and what future plates are as well. So with this selected, you'll notice that the name changed to our VFX shot down here. I'm going to go over to our render settings, and we will create our proper render settings. I'm going to render this out as RGB, half is fine, EXRs, 24 frames per second, and then let's do individual clips, and then as long as we use our clip name that we just created, we should be fine. I have to click it. There you go. And then I'm going to browse for our location. Let's see. Projects. These things always get swapped up on me. There it is. And then streams, today's date. I'm going to create a new folder called VFX plate. And then we'll go ahead and select this folder. And it's going to use this custom name right here. We're also going to want to change the amount of frames that it's rendering to just 4, which is pretty industry standard, 4 or 6. And then I'm going to have each clip start at frame 1000, because again, that's pretty industry standard. It just allows all the compositing artists and CG artists to have everything line up on the same frame number. So we'll use that there. And then let's see. I'm going to use a same folder name right here. So if we do clip name, Great. So now if I render this out, this should just work. As long as I didn't forget anything. So we'll go back over here to our VFX plates, and you'll see our folder and all of our shot inside of there, all of our frames of our shot. And you can even see that inside of this, all of the frame numbers are starting at frame 1000 all the way to the end of our sequence. And again, it's just using the 4 digits that we kind of fed into it. So with that being said, let's go ahead and hi Shahab Ali. Shahab Ali, welcome. And let's go ahead and open up our Nuke comp now, and we can go ahead and drop our shot into here. I'm going to set up our project settings to work with the ACES configuration that we have installed directly inside of our Nuke composite. And that should be all we have to do there. And so now if we go ahead and import our project, which I could find here, select the VFX plate and that right here. We go ahead and view it. If we select ACES CG as our option, oops, there we go, ACES CG, this will be the exact same color as what it was on the website. So there is the proper color management that we would have for our scene there. Let's see. Okay. Let's go ahead and get started now inside of our comp. Now that we have our whole section set up here, I'm going to go ahead and save this actually to our drive. We'll create a new folder for this called scripts. I like to keep all of my visual effects script files in one location, so that way I know where everything is later on. I'm going to call this comp version 1. I showed this trick last time, but if you do put the V01 at the end of your thing, or anywhere inside of your naming structure, if you press Alt-Shift-S, it actually just auto upgrades that version number. So if you're working with new versions all the time from that you're working with clients that often have different many versions going forward, using Alt-Shift-S is great, because then you can just upgrade your versions as you're going along, and you don't have to worry about losing any progress. So if you want to go back to like a specific version, then it makes it a lot easier. So here's the shot. I'm gonna go ahead and just let's get this in playback here. We can take a look at what we're gonna need to do on this shot. There are several things that we could probably do on this shot, but for the sake of today, we're going to work on just compositing some fire assets into it. And then maybe we can go back in a future stream and fix some of the things. For instance, there's a bit of a paint out that we might need to do here. But who knows, we might be able to get to that today. So let's first start out by, I like to use a camera tracker, especially if we're going to be doing multiple layers of stuff. For instance, we need to add fire to the foreground here, as well as the walls back here, and then on the windows as well. And then of course, we're going to need to be able to paint out some stuff. For instance, the window and this light back here, we're going to need to paint out some of those things on this particular shot. And with that is more than one track, where sometimes you might just add in a single tracker node and track something to like a specific point, or like 2 tracker nodes to get the rotation of something. This is more of a 3D camera movement that's happening, and we want the orientation and everything to be adjusted because of that. So before we do that though, we've got this moving guy here in the center, and he's going to throw off our track. So I'm going to throw in a roto node, and we're going to roto him out, so that way we don't have him in the way of our shot. So with this roto node, go ahead and just anything that's moving, in our particular case it's just this dude, and we can kind of go through here and create several keyframes of the area in which he's moving. Doesn't have to be perfect, it's just a very rough garbage mat or mask. I'm just going to jump through here and try to... The trick is that you don't want to get rid of all of your other detailed areas that you have in your scene, because you're going to be using those to track your key points. But you do need to get rid of this guy because he's going to throw off the camera tracker because it'll be like, oh, well, it's this point here is moving this way. Computers are not as smart as you would think. I'm waiting for one day when we finally have a camera tracker that's just like literally perfect out of the box. I mean, but we're pretty dang close already to that compared to what they had to do back in the, well, back in the 80s. They had to match move everything by hand, so it's not exactly fair to compare to that. Okay, I think this should work here. So again, we'll just jump to the in-between keyframes here to make sure that everything kind of lines up. I'm going to say this frame right here. I don't want the shadow to come in, just in case. Any kind of like of the areas that are high contrast, we don't want those to pop up. So that's, by high contrast I mean like, you know, his ear could think that it's a tracking marker or something like that, so it'll try to do something there. I'm just following backwards. There we go. So that's great. So now that we have this roto, let's go ahead and drop this into our camera tracker node that we have here. You'll notice that on our camera tracker, there's this little triangle here. If we pull that out, it says mask. So I could plug this directly into our roto, and we're going to want to make sure that our roto is pre-multiplied, so that way we have an alpha. We can see what that does here by checking out the alpha mask here. Good morning, Ben. Welcome to the stream. Welcome. And so that's going to create ourselves a alpha mask. And this is everywhere that is, and this is everywhere that isn't, if you are looking at the footage that way. So if we go look at our camera tracker, you'll notice that inside of here we have a mask option. We want to select source inverted alpha. Actually, no, I would think we're going to want source. Well, let's see what this does real quick. I always get these confused. And again, it's not source. What am I doing here? It's mask. It's mask alpha. There we go. Select mask alpha, and that's going to select everywhere that isn't that circle that we did in the center of the image, and that's going to find all of the high contrast points. And you can see like what it's doing here with some of these trackers here, or not trackers, but things on the wall. And this is where it's like, if you're an on-set VFX soup, you know what's a really easy thing to do is just throw little tracking markers around your scene. Because this wall, it doesn't know how to track a wall. So if you're trying to find like areas in your scene that aren't being covered by him, like he's not in front of it, put little tracking markers there. Little LED lights work really well for dark scenes. Like something that doesn't cast a lot of light onto its surrounding area, but it'll pop on the camera. You want something like that, or something high contrast, like a black dot on this wall. If you could throw little black dots on the wall, that allows you to later paint them out. And granted, you will have to paint them out, but if your scene is just a big blank wall and you have to add something onto a big blank wall, you're not going to have any fun if you have no contrasting points, because the tracking is going to be horrendous and it's going to be terrible. So if you can add dots in and just paint them out later, then try to do that. But for us, this is actually pretty great because this scene has a lot of contrast points in it. Sometimes you have to be careful of reflections if like the reflections are warbling in a weird way. So, but you just use another roto node and that will get rid of any of those areas that might be confusing to your track. So with that being said, we can hit this little preview button, and that actually allows us to see where these previews or these trackers are going to try to track. So now if we hit the track button, it's going to go through our entire sequence forward and then backwards to check its track. So let's do this real quick and then see how close we are. If let's see how well it works. Sometimes you'll need to make some adjustments, and we'll go through that together. That's what the point of doing this live is. But you can see how like these different contrasty points on his hand and like this chain even and all of that might throw off the tracker because it'll try to track that as well. However, a fun thing that you can do is if there is a moving object, for instance, let's say a door is opening. I did this on a shot once. We had a door opening and we needed to have a track of just that door so we could put a 3D object on that door. You can actually use that roto node to kind of create the area in which you want that 3D movement to happen. So if you don't want the scene to be tracked, but you want the object to be tracked, you can do that as well. Okay, now this is done. We'll hit this little solve button on our image here. Let's see. Here we go. Sorry, I meant to press 2, F2, not 2 on my keyboard. You'll see that the error is 1.23. We kind of, generally speaking, in visual effects want it. This is per pixel, so like it's pixel per frame, essentially. 1.23 is pretty good. It's not good enough. We want it to be less than 1, ideally. With our particular thing we're tracking into our scene, it's fire, so you could probably get away with it not being perfect. But we'll need that to be a little bit better for our standards. So we'll go to auto track here, and the first thing you can do is just hit delete unsolved. That's going to delete all the yellow tracks, and then delete rejected. That's going to delete all the red tracks. And you can already see it drop down a little bit. What we can do now is we can play with some of these settings. We have this max track error. If we want to make that like much less, perhaps let's say we were going to say, hey, you know, we want it to be about 0.9 for our max track error, because we have quite a bit of green still in here as we're tracking that in. Our max track error will be like the amount of pixels that it was off at any given time. So if we delete unsolved, delete rejected, that's already going to drop us down to like a 0.6, and that's perfect. That's all we need. Thing to watch out for is this blue bar here on the bottom. You don't want this to have any missing frames. So make sure that while you're trying to fix your solve, that you're not getting rid of so many tracks that you lose your solve on your entire shot sequence. That's just something to keep in mind. Otherwise, you're going to have to completely retrack something. After you hit delete rejected, you're going to have to retrack from scratch. So you have to delete solve and then retrack everything. But for us, this actually works really nicely. So let's go ahead and use that. There's actually one thing I did forget to do. So we're going to just redo this sequence here, but our lens distortion right now, it says no lens distortion, and I know that to be incorrect. So we're going to use unknown lens, and we're going to clear our solve. Let's clear our track as well, and we'll just retrack it. That was a mistake on my part. So what this is going to do now is that it's actually going to be a little bit more accurate than it would have been before. But our cameras have a certain amount of distortion in them. Every single lens in the real world has a certain amount of distortion. And what we're doing right now is we're going to say, hey, let's compensate for that distortion and create an undistort node. This will allow us to put CG elements into our sequence, as well as just anything that's going to be tracked into our scene. It'll just work better on the edges of the frame. So now that that's done, we'll hit the solve button. Should be pretty similar to what the number was before. Yep, it was. And now if we go in here, we'll just do the same steps that we did before. Delete rejected. And I'm also going to just, again, make this just below 0.9, because we don't need all of these extra tracks. We have quite a bit in our scene, and again, just make sure that our entire sequence has that blue line on it telling us that there is a keyframe on every frame. We could also do max error. We can adjust the max error, but I just like to adjust the max track error. That just allows me to really see things clearly there. And now if we change this export option, we're going to change this to Scene Plus. This will just set up our entire sequence for us. So hit that, and it's going to create this entire setup for us. I'm going to move this over here just so that way everything's a little bit cleaner. And now if we go look at our distortion, it is undistorting our image, and it's only doing it slightly. This camera doesn't have too much distortion on it, but you'll notice that it is moving on the pixel frames here a certain amount. And if the fire, let's say we had some kind of element tracked to this box back here, it would need to be tracked perfectly, and it would start to float the closer it got to the edge of the frame, because as you could tell on the edges of the frame, even on this side, it is moving as well, and that's just because the way lenses work is it's distorting closer to the edges of your frame. You could do this also with a lens grid chart if they shot that for the film. I don't know that ActionVFX released any lens charts, so that's just something to keep in mind. Okay. My phone was doing something weird there. Okay, great. So now let's go ahead, and before we do any of that, let's go ahead and do a few things. Firstly, we know that we're going to need this back wall to be tracked, so if we just select 2 points on this back wall that we know that it will probably be pretty good, let's just select these 2 points here. If we say create a card, it's going to create a card that's in that area with the general orientation, the general orientation of our scene. And we're going to plug this into our scene with like a checkerboard just to see what that's going to look like here. So let's go to the scene render here. I'm going to create a checkerboard image and just plug that into the image of this card. And we'll plug that card into our scene. And as I said, it might screw up the orientation of it, but we can fix that. So if I set that to 0 and then like this to 0, this should overall, and we'll set this to 0 as well, should overall just kind of like work. And then if we just scale that down to something a little bit smaller, then we're going to see that in the correct portion of the image. So now if I play back our sequence, it should track to that back wall pretty good. But let's just play it back and see how well our track did for us today. You can see there's a floating around tracking marker right there, and I'm wondering if that could throw off our sequence as well. It doesn't look like it has thrown off what we currently have, but if there is anything that's like moving, like a weird tracking marker that's moving, it's important to kind of like catch those and identify them. That looks pretty good. Yeah, it looks pretty good. I'm happy with that. If we do want to make any adjustments, as I said, let's go back to the scene tracker. I could show you. It's this guy here that's going to be our problem. And we can just select these. We can just delete them. If there's any like tracking markers that we know are going to be problematic, we could just delete those. And that can help fix our solve a little bit better. The next thing is we have all these white dots, and they will pop up in your render. So you can select this camera tracking point cloud here and then change render to off, and then that way we don't see that as we're doing playback. Okay, first things first, we're going to import some fire assets and then build out our scene. I'm probably going to go to the last frame since it's the widest of the entire sequence. And then I'm going to scale up this wall back here, this card. And again, we could probably select a few more points that we know we want to have. So for instance, let's say, select these two here and then say create a card on that wall. And we can see it in 3D here. And as long as it lines up with our points, then that should be fine. So we press tab again. I'm going to want to view the actual scene here, sequence. And our zero orientation, I'm just going to rotate that to the side. And again, things could look like the track is off if your plane isn't intersecting with the tracking points. So it's kind of important to go to the 3D view here and kind of view this. You can also see where your tracking points are kind of lining up. And then just picking two solid tracking markers that you can have your plane connected with. I'm going to do a few more things here. So this is our 3D sequence. I'm going to, firstly, let's go to our actual footage here. We're using 2K DCP 2048 by 1080 as our preset. Let's go to our project settings and reflect that here. So 2K DCP. And then that should be 2048 by 1080. And now anytime we don't have anything selected, so let's just say I disconnect everything, its auto default result will be 2048 by 1080. And that's important because right now with this scanline renderer, we're having the BG plugged directly into the scanline renderer. And I want to disconnect that. And now we're going to take this B option here and then just plug that in all the way down there. What that allows us to do though is change the transparency and allows us to multiply the colors and do whatever we want with just this as like its own alpha before we get to the section that we are here. So this is another great way of checking your track is if you change your transparency to something a little bit lower, you're gonna have this whole wall kind of like move accordingly. Later also, if you double click your scanline renderer, if you add samples, this will add motion blur. So just add like 10 samples for instance. This will take a little bit longer to cache, so we're not going to do this during the stream, but this will add some motion blur, which will map a little bit better to your camera that you have, and that way you don't have to worry about that. Okay, great. Before we move on there, let's turn off this multi-samples. We'll just set that to 1. And I'm going to check out this camera tracker here. We're going to want to add in our floor as well. So let's select some high contrasting points on the floor. Probably something like that. And something like right here, cross frame. Create a new card. And let's see, let's change the orientation to like a 90. And honestly, we just scale that up. I think that kind of connects with everything pretty well. Yeah, let's do that. I'm going to use the checkerboard as well. That just allows us to really see everything from like that perspective. If we plug that now into our scene, we're going to see that on the ground here. So now if we want to have any like of the ground have any like smoldering effects on it, that will allow us to make our adjustments directly on the ground. You can see right now though the horizon line is not connected properly. And it's because of the overall like rotation of this X right here. So let's select this card and then we can change the X value to be something a little bit higher. I think something like that will be a little bit nicer. So that way it connects. We want to make sure that it's even the entire time. And then let's see, one more thing. I'm going to correct the transform of it. Perfect. And again, that is intersecting with all of our tracking markers that we have here. Although these are a little bit lower, so we might want to adjust the rotation slightly a little bit more. Perfect. So now we're getting that horizon line as well as this connected here. So if we watch that in playback, everything should line up really nicely. And again, it's very important that we spend our time to get this to look just right here, because otherwise we're going to be fighting with bad tracking later, and that is absolutely no fun, believe me. So this is the time to make sure that everything is perfect. And this is the layout section. So like ideally, what right now this is going to be done by a tracking artist, and if that's you, like I'm a generalist, so I do everything from the beginning to the end on the shot for the productions that I work on. And this is the stage in which I will go through and do all of my tracking. And you can see now this is really clean. Like everything is moving really nicely with our sequence. And we're going to want this wall here, so we'll do that here momentarily. But as you can see, we already got like a really nice track on this. So let's go ahead and do the same thing that we did before to get that right wall here. And then we can start adding in some of the fun stuff, the assets that we'll be using. So I'm going to select 2 points here to just like roughly see if we can get this card to line up with this wall. And let's do that. And let's see, let's do 0 on that. Though it's probably not 0. Plug that into our checker. Now we get card 3. Just organize these a little bit better. That'll be our third card, and I want to make sure that this right wall that we have here, kind of see our whole sequence here. We're going to take this third card that we have here, and then we'll just make that a little bit higher. We want to make sure that it is intersecting with our tracking points that we have. And this one's going to be a little more difficult to line up because we don't have as many tracking markers over there. Let's just see if that kind of like lines up a little bit better. Do that in playback again. Now, why this is important is because when we do all of our work, we will be doing adding in fire, sure. So we could have just tracked this back piece here if we were only adding fire to this wall. But if we're doing like a full 3D camera track, what's really nice about this is that now we're going to be able to do anything we need to do. So if the director's like, hey, paint out this thing in the window or paint out this, we have full creative control over that completely. If we wanted to outsource this to, let's say, Blender or Maya or something like that and drop in some CG objects, we could totally do that as well. So now we've got like this really nice camera track here. And that's that. So that's the process with creating the track. We'll say we see the edge here. So let's go ahead and fix this if we can. I'm going to select this wall here. We'll just have that move over. So that way we don't see the end of it at the end of the sequence. Okay. Now there's a few things that we're going to need to do. Let's go ahead and start adding in some fire elements. We're going to do this to the last frame here. And this is basically just like, think of it like Photoshop. We're going to try to add in some fire around this window. We'll do this window right here so that way we don't have to worry about roto. Normally we would probably want to get roto. For today, I think we don't have enough time to, but we can always come back to this shot tomorrow or something like that if we wanted to get like very highly specific things done on this shot. I'm going to go ahead and save this and we can continue working on it. I'm going to use some assets that I have from ActionVFX. You can find a lot of the assets that I'm working with using this referral link here. You can go over to ActionVFX's website and get any of the assets you need. I happen to have quite a bit of downloads already, and I'm going to be using some of the assets here, such as like flying sparks, fire on the walls, fire on the ceiling, things like this. So let's use some of this assets that we have here. I will say on the practice footage, they do have recommended assets if you want to just use those. So if you use that link in the description, it'll take you to their website. Just go to practice footage and then find the shot that you're working on, and they have recommended assets here that you can select and use, and you can find just specific assets that you want. For instance, I'm going to add in a burning window right now. So I have all of these assets of window on fire, so I'll select that. And let's say we like this one, right? Or, you know, I really like that one actually. Yeah, so let's go ahead and select this asset here. So let's do square window fire front 6 is the asset that we're going to use. So hit the download button to this. I don't know why I'm zoomed in on their website right now. Then I'll just download this to our project directory. Now under our project directory, we already have these folders here. I like to create a new folder called VFX material. This allows me to always have my assets in kind of like one location. So I'm just going to download all of my VFX material here and into a folder called assets, because we're going to have a lot of different types of materials theoretically on every single VFX shot. But assets is going to be where we're going to save all of our video assets that we want to have. So if I download this now into our scene, let's see, once this is done, I can drop it in and show you what that's going to look like. We're also going to want to remove kind of this image that we're using here, and we'll use a dot. Because all of this is going to be the same. We're just projecting our work onto the backdrop right now. We're not using cards, we're just going to be projecting our work onto the back walls that we have. If you want to have fire in the foreground in front of him, which we will be doing as well, then we will do that a different method. So this square window fire, we could just drag in now. You'll notice that it's going to not know how to tag it. So we're going to need to tag this correctly. So we'll just go ahead into our inputs. Actually, it's funny. I don't normally use this config file, so I'm going to have to figure out how to actually tag stuff. Let's do utility. Is it going to be one? Let's do 2.2 gamut. And now this is our kind of flaming fire that we have. The first thing I like to do with all of our fire assets that we have is just reformat them to the correct format that we need. I'm going to do it to height since it's a very tall asset. And again, you guys can find all these assets, link description below. But this particular asset is shot very tall, and so I'm just going to reformat that into our 2K 2048 by 1080. If you want, you can also, after this, crop it, and then that's just going to reset your crop factor of your channels, so that way you're not seeing any ugly lines as you're working on this. But the next thing I like to do is I'm just going to throw in a merge node here, and I'm just going to view our sequence just directly. And this is just going to put our asset kind of in this world. And for right now, delete the crop. We'll add a crop here later. But I'm going to add in a transform. That's right. I'm going to show you guys what I'm doing here, so that way you can see what we're doing. I have our asset here, and I'm tagging it as Gamma 2.2 Rec 709. Then I'm reformatting it using the height as the resize option to our 2K kind of raster that we're doing. And then I'm adding in a transform. And this transform is going to allow us to move this to any part of the scene that we need. So right now it looks really wacky, doesn't look correct. That's fine. We're going to make all of the adjustments we need to make this look realistic, like real fire. So I'm just first going to kind of line this up with our window that we have here. It's really just drag and drop. It's not that difficult to do. But now we're going to want this to be on our cards. Now, if we went and viewed our sequence here, and I'm just going to set the mix to 1, it's going to be completely black because our cards here don't have any alpha. But if I just plug this into our transform, first thing you'll notice is that it doesn't look correct whatsoever. Everything kind of just disappears. And the reason why is because it doesn't know how to interpret what this texture size is to the rest of your image. The other thing that we're going to need to note here is that when we select our fire that we have, it's actually incorrect because the frame range starts at 1. So that's another thing that we're going to need to adjust for. So right before we do the reformat, go ahead and add in a time offset. And this is going to be by frames, and we're just going to set this to 999. Because again, we start all of our sequences at frame 1000. So if we go look at our sequence starting at frame 1000, we have this beautiful fire shot that we have here. And I think we were on frame 1024. No, we were not. We're going to find our end frame. Let's do everything on our last frame here, 1085. Just kind of line up our fire with the edge here. And of course, it looks terrible, but we're going to add all of our glow and make it look like it's actually burning into it rather than sitting on top of it. But for right now, we just need the orientation to be correct. Once we kind of get that there, we're going to take our camera, we'll select our camera, and then copy it, and then paste it. Double click on that. I'm actually going to select my camera here, and then, actually I'm just going to select them, make sure that we're only selecting one object at a time, so that way it doesn't get too confusing. But if you double click your camera and you right click anywhere here, you can say no animation on all knobs, and this is going to freeze frame it. Make sure you're on your last frame of your sequence, because if you're on your last frame of your sequence, or whatever frame that you're trying to do your Photoshop composite on, that's the frame that you want to be on. It's going to lock in your translation and your rotation and potentially your scale, which our scale did not change, but it would lock all of that stuff in, so that way we don't have to worry about it. And we're going to use that to project onto our sequence. So real quick, I want to adjust the scaling of this so that way it lines up with the window edges a little bit better. Perfect. But now, using this camera, we're going to drop in what's called a Project 3D shader. I'm doing everything in Classic because I prefer the Classic tools currently to the new Nuke tools, but you can use whatever you prefer. And now let's plug this into our transform, and then now if we plug this into our Project 3D, we will notice that when we go to our actual merge sequence, it has it right there. Drops it right there. The other thing we probably want to adjust for is to make sure that we're using our lens distortion as our preview of our section. So that's the only thing that I kind of did incorrectly there. But now with our Project 3D, it's going to project whatever texture we have using this frame. So that's why it's important to be viewing it only on this frame. And an easy way to make sure you're always doing that is just select a frame hold, plug that into your lens distortion, and now every time you want to do any compositing work, make sure you're doing it over top of this frame hold specifically. Now, with your fire, you'll notice that if we go to hit the play button, it's actually going to track into our scene using that 3D camera track that we had. It's projecting it onto that back wall, and then that way we have like a nice 3D camera track for all of our fire assets. And you'll notice right away, actually, a issue that we'll have potentially is if our asset is going off the scene here, it's going to be clipped. And that's because this camera is rotated higher than it was on that last frame that we did. Now, this is going to happen all the time for different things that you're going to have. The way to fix it is actually incredibly simple. You just go to this Project 3D node that we have here, and instead of having this crop, which is selected by default, just don't have it cropped. And voila, it's not going to crop your textures to fit with inside of that specific camera angle, because it was taking this camera angle here and was cropping it based on that. So now we have our fire tracked into our scene. We should probably go through and add in some more fire assets for different parts of the scene. So let's see, here's some more Windows stuff. Let's find some other assets that we might like. Let's do walls and ceilings. I think that might be nice. If we get like a nice corner of a wall, I think that would be pretty cool. So they've got some fire corners here. I really like this, but let's get it to rotate the other direction. So I'm going to download this asset from ActionVFX's website. And then let's grab a few more while we're here. We have some sparks that we might want to have. Some smoldering surfaces for the ground might actually be pretty cool. Let's grab this one. I like this. Oh no, let's grab this one right here. Really what we're doing right now is we're going to find some assets that just help build up our scene and make it look more realistic. What we're going for. I don't think we really see the ceiling in this shot. It's mostly just walls. Okay, and then I'm going to grab kind of like burning fire asset that we're going to place in front of everything else. This is probably the right rotation. It's important to note the camera angle in which these things are happening as well. So make sure that you're not... Ooh, this might take a few minutes here, guys. This wall ceiling is smoldering rubble's about finished. So let's go ahead and start adding that one in. So we have these different assets. Let's grab the smoldering rubble. And again, this is just kind of like it's kind of just a texture. That's great. We're going to use this to burn on into the ground. So I'm going to copy and paste this same time offset that we have here. And we're going to use this before this project 3D. All of our kind of assets we're going to have up into our own kind of section over here. So go ahead and just kind of keep everything a little bit organized there. I'm going to use our merge node trick that we did before. And I'm going to use it kind of just down here. And again, we're not getting the glow, we're not getting any of that stuff right now, we're mostly just placing our assets in. So I'm going to use a corner pin, I think. After the reformat, and then we will merge this onto our other sequence that we have here. Let's use a plus as our viewing option. And I'm going to take this corner pin and let's just say it goes on the ground, like roughly right here. And ideally we would have a roto of him so that way it's not going over top of him. Ideally, let's just get the orientation down a little bit better. I think that's good. And we could probably use a merge node or something like that. And plug the mask directly into that. I'm gonna select this area right here like that, and then we'll pre-multiply this RGBA. So now if we use this and invert it, let's use an edge blur on this roto. That will clean up our kind of edge here and then make it so that way he doesn't go over top of it. We could also have it be square. It's just, you know, we would need to create a roto of our actor in our sequence. You may or may not want to do that. And we see that towards the end of our sequence here. it's important to note that the alpha or the alpha of this particular layer is completely black. So the other thing we're going to want to do is potentially on this we'll need to create our own kind of Luma key or something like that in order to create our own alpha channel. So we can actually do that by creating a constant. Let's actually see if this works. So if we take a constant and then we take a merge node, we can then take the alpha of this guy here. Actually, let's take the alpha of this guy here. And if we set this to a plus modifier or a screen, yeah, that doesn't change our alpha of that. But another way we could do this is we could take a keyer or yeah, a Luma keyer essentially. And this will create a key this way. So we can increase the amount that our key would do. And now if we take another merge node, that's going to be below below that section, and plug that into our key that we have here. We will now only have our fire assets that we have. We do lose a little bit of detail. That's fine though. I mean, we can probably adjust that later if we need to. So now if we go back into our sequence, we now only have our smoldering fire. I mean, honestly, if we don't do it this method, let's do it this way. If we do it the method of taking over here and then we say screen multiply this or plus multiply it, it's going to be removing all the black anyways. One thing you have to watch out for is that it doesn't make things too transparent. And we'll be fixing all of this later. We're just trying to get the orientation of everything correct. But now that we have that on the ground, the camera track will move and it will be burned into the ground a little bit better. So that's good there. And let's see, we're going to add in some fire directly in front of him. So let's go ahead and do that as well. Should have all of these assets downloaded. Let's get the wall and ceiling done first before we move on to another angle, camera angle. Gonna just change the Rec 7 to 9 input here, utility. Two things though on this. Let's use a transform and then flop the invert it essentially. We can change the scale of the width to like a -1 because that's going to be the side of our shot. Let's use a reformat node and then another transform after that to be able to move it to where we need to in the scene. Add another merge node and place that on top of everything. Kind of line this up with the corner of the place right here, and this is actually the perfect camera angle for this fire asset, so actually works out great for us. See, I don't like the way this plus looks. I'm going to use screen for right now. I need to use a time offset for this as well. Let's play this back just to see how our sequence looks with the fire that we currently have in there. And we are going to need to do some roto here on the back foot as it's moving over our shot. And you could go crazy. I would say like you want to have fire in all of the windows. Let's start downloading some assets for that right now, since I know I'm going to need it. I think we already downloaded 6. Windows 6, yeah. So let's do a few different windows. I don't want to use the same window, although we could use the same window asset and just offset it. That's pretty cool. Yeah, let's just use the same asset. I don't have to download multiple assets. This will be great anyways, because it'll show you guys how to do more VFX more like on a budget rather than... As you can see, it's glowing here. That's pretty nice. That's good. And we're going to need to add some burn marks onto the wall here. There's a lot that we're going to need to add in here, but this is overall going in the right direction. Let's do some more Windows stuff. Let's add another merge node up here. I'm going to use this time offset. It's just going to be slightly different. So let's just copy, or we're not even going to copy paste. Let's just copy this guy here and paste that there. And our time offset now is just going to be, let's say, 800. Great. And then now if we use a transform node here, we can actually just move that. It's going to have different flames because it's going to be about 100 off. So now if we just use this as our merge node, we'll see our second window in here that we could just drag over. Yes, it's getting interesting. VFX is a very slow process, but you know, it is. It's the art of it. You know, just take your time, and hopefully something good will come out of it. I'm gonna do this a few more times. I'm just gonna change the offset here again to something like 700. And of course we could just use this same merge node, by the way. We could just select another from this left side. It'll do A2. And then that way we're not having a million different merge nodes for different sections of it. We're just adding all of our fire in on one merge node. And again, pick offset, time offsets that will be just far enough away from each other that it's not going to look too obvious, because the flames need to be in different orientations, otherwise it'll look like you're copy pasting stuff. I worked on a film once and I didn't do the VFX on this one shot, but there was a VFX artist that did this shot where there was fire that was going up these poles, and they used the same fire asset for all the different elements of it, and so all the fire went up at the same time. So it's kind of important to make sure you don't do stuff like that, to try to find different offsets that you could use, or maybe even different assets that you can use to make it look more natural and realistic, because otherwise if everything looks exactly the same, then the viewer is going to notice immediately. So try to offset things, or whatever you can to try to make it so that it looks more natural, more realistic. Okay, great. Now if we go view our main sequence here, you'll notice that we're having some hair problems here, because his head's going to go in front of that. Here's another cool thing we can do Well, we'll do the paint out stuff later. I don't want to have to do that this time. So now we got our windows there. I think we just need one more window and then we'll be good. Same thing though, we're going to adjust the offset. We'll go above. Well, actually, no, we can't. Let's do 843. Oh, well, we don't want the mask. We want A from this side. I always almost did that completely incorrect there. Just change this to this side. Great. Can even just like make that brighter by just taking the merge node and just dropping it on top of itself. Which, I mean, we could totally do that. That's just going to brighten everything up a little bit. It's weird, I'm getting like these, it's like transparent, which is not preferable in my opinion. Is there something wacky going on? Let's do over. Let's change this back to over. I'm going to rename my cards here as well, just that way if I do need to see what I'm doing, let's call this wall 2, and then this can be wall 1. Or even back wall, side wall, whatever. But yeah, let's just see how well this tracks, how well it plays back. And while that's caching, let's open up DaVinci Resolve. We're going to create a quick roto of our dude crawling on the ground here. I am a few versions back on Resolve. I do need to get the latest version. I downloaded it the other day. It's just I haven't installed it. Such a hassle, guys. Such a hassle. Let's open up like an untitled project here. And we can find our asset that we're, or our plate that we're using. What am I doing here? Streams. 0305, and then we have our VFX plate. And again, it's going to be a little dark in our scene here, and we can actually adjust for this inside of this new scene that we're creating. Let's do 2048 by 1080. And then for the color management settings, let's change this to color, or not color managed, but to ACES CC. And I'm going to kind of change the input to ACES CG. And then the output can be Rec 709. And let's see, that should all be good. Great. So now this is going to allow our DaVinci Resolve to understand exactly what it needs to do. I'm going to start on the first frame here. And if you go to the color tab, let's just create like a, let's see how easy we can get this to go. I'm just going to use the mask output. And if we go to our settings here, I'm just going to turn that on. Select our guy. It takes to load. Come on. Super laggy. Thank you, DaVinci. There we go. I'm gonna try also. Let's just. That's fine. I think overall I'm okay with it not being perfect. I mean, we can always change this to better, and then it'll give us a more accurate result around some of the areas, like around the hair. Although I find that it tends to. I guess it doesn't matter if it's choppy there, as long as it's good around the edges on the top of his head, because I know that's where most of our roto work's going to need to be. And again, if you're like an actual roto artist, it's really important that it's perfect. But since we know what we need, it's a little bit easier for us. We know what parts of the frame that we need to have adjusted, and so, you know, we can get away with something that's a little more choppy. His foot is like popping in and out there though, so we're gonna need to adjust for that. Let's see. I think we just have to do this one frame and then it'll... Nope. Although it does do it for the most part. It went out that one, a few frames there. Oh, and it went out again. Crap. Another thing we could do, actually, let's try that. Let's delete our keys here. Let's find his foot out, because like since the AI doesn't know what that looks like, we're going to start it with it out. Looks pretty good. And let's try it going forward and backward tracking from there. And hopefully, because it knows what that foot looks like, it's not going to have any issues going backwards. Yeah. That's great. Let's go ahead and just turn this off real quick and then watch the head to make sure it's not flickering like crazy. Yeah, it looks fine to me. Go to the deliverable options here, and we're going to change this to JPEGs. JPEG is totally fine for a matte, it's just black and white. And let's go ahead and save this in the correct folder. Streams, yeah. I don't know why it takes me so long to find that every single time. Under our VFX materials, let's create a new folder called mats. And we'll just name this 2024 0305 mat 01. Also shot name 010. Mat 01. And let's just call it, we'll give it a version number. Put the dot there. And let's see, that's all good. We'll go to the file naming convention. The custom name there is fine. We'll do 4 digits. And then we do want it to start on frame 1000. And we'll do this, we'll copy the same name and put it as the file subfolder. So that way it does create a folder for it. Set render button. And now it's going to give us our mat that we can input into our Nuke comp. But DaVinci Resolve's free, guys. Go get it. You know, like, why not? It's free. You could pay for the Pro version, but we're not even doing 4K comps right now. We're doing a 2K comp, so there's not really a huge point to worry about that. Oh, that track's looking pretty good. And then we're just going to drop in our roto here, so that way our head is fine as well. Whoa, that's laggy. Let's go ahead and find our matte that we have. VFX material, mattes. And because we started on frame 1000, this is going to make it way easier for us to line everything up. We don't have to hit the Start At button. Let's just find our input here, or utility, and then we'll just set this to a... Yeah, that should be fine, right? Going to select the original footage. Keep in mind this is the undistorted footage, and we're going to plug the mask into this matte that we just imported. I'm actually curious because, like, I'm not sure. Well, that's just 1. You can see the value is set to 1, so it should just work. Our mask merge that we have here, let's go ahead and select like any color is fine, because it's not an alpha channel. It's just red, green, or blue, and you can see right now that down here this value is set to 1. So that should just work. So now we have our guy over alpha, which is awesome. So now if we go to our actual merge here, we're going to add just another merge on top of it and drop our A input into that merge node. And so now our dude is going to be over top of our fire, and we're not going to have any issues with that. And of course, the better your roto is, the cleaner it's going to look. But now we're not going to have any issues with that. Midweek party with Connor. Yes, just a few of us. Thank you so much for watching, though. It's been great. Trying to do more of these streams during the week because it's been requested. It looks like we're gonna have some roto issues here, guys. Okay, well, we can fix that roto later. Let's work on some of the glow stuff that we would want to have with our sequence. I'm going to clean up this by pulling this down a little bit. And we're going to do a little bit of work directly before everything happens. So under our scanline renderer, there's this really cool method. There's this great guy, so if you don't follow him on YouTube, you should. His name is Hugo. Hugo's Desk. He had this great suggestion on how to add glow for fire elements and assets into your scene. Highly recommend subscribing to him because he's a professional VFX supervisor that does a lot of great things. So go check out his stuff. But I'm going to be using one of his methods right now, which is to add in like a really nice realistic glow to your scene. So after our scanline renderer here, this is where we're going to want to do most of our kind of like work that we're doing before we put everything back over top of our scene. Firstly, let's go ahead and add in like an exposure node. We kind of want everything to be a little bit brighter in our scene, especially since everything is kind of happening in like this kind of like daytime shot. We can kind of expose it to match the scene a little bit better there. You're going to want to go through all of your assets and kind of like match them a little bit better. But a way to do that is to do an unpremult, and that's going to unpremultiply all of your assets. And then after you've finished all of your color work, so for instance, let's add in a bit more saturation to our sequence here. Take the gain and just lift that up a little bit. Too much saturation, Connor. Actually, 0.8 is probably fine for the saturation. And now we'll just pre-malt everything back on there. And that's going to be our grading kind of area that we're doing there. But let's go ahead and start adding a little bit more realistic glow to our shot here. So firstly, let's go ahead and add in kind of a glow right here. We'll just drop in a glow node. And it's overall going to kind of glow everything. But that's not what we want. So we're going to separate everything from our highlights all the way down to our midtones and then our kind of like shadow areas to have different levels of glow, because we want to have an inside glow as well as an exterior glow. So we can adjust our tolerance here for our first glow to be something like I think 0.02, somewhere around there should be fine. Ideally, we kind of just want to target like a specific area in which our glow is happening at. And then with this, we can change our brightness. Let's just make it something, let's half it to like 0.5. And then with our saturation, let's go ahead and half that as well. And then kind of our size, this is where the size of our, if we do something like a 17 should be fine. And that's kind of going to just glow, make everything glow here a little bit more. And we're going to take this and we're going to merge this back on top of our footage that we have here, because we're taking our actual shot here and then we want to merge it back on top, and we're going to use a screen function for this. So just change that to screen. And so essentially what this is going to be doing is it's going to be adding glow on top of your actual fire assets that you have here, just a little bit of glow. And probably going to turn this down a little bit. We don't want it too heavy. Something around there should be fine. Just adding a little bit of inner glow to your sequence. That's already going to just add a little bit like nice, ferocious, you know, realism to it. Let's add a dot into here. Keep things clean, keep things organized. Next up, let's go ahead and add in another dot, and I'm going to add in another glow. I'll plug this glow into that dot right here, and let's go view that again. So for this particular one, we're going to want to target kind of like the mid areas. So let's just change the tolerance to something like out there should be fine. Let's do like a 0.5 actually. And then for our brightness, let's change this to like somewhere around there. And our saturation, let's go ahead and adjust that as well. And then for our size on this particular one, do something a little bit larger or a little bit smaller. And then we're going to take this glow here and we're going to merge this back on top of our footage again. We'll use another screen. And let's see. Let's go ahead and save that. And let's see. Okay, great. Overall, it's looking pretty good. I like it. And then let's see. We're going to merge that back on top of everything there. We're going to have to fix kind of overall this exposure might be a little too bright. I was jumping on some Nuke videos and I just realized that I'm actually watching a live stream now. Good job, Connor. All the best in regards. Oh, thank you so much, Mark. Thanks for dropping in. Yeah, we're just we're doing some stuffs right now. Hopefully making this look good. That's the goal, right? Good evening. Well, for me it's morning, but good evening to you. go ahead and save that. Okay, that's not terrible. One thing I will say, we're going to want to have the glow over top of everything. And so now this is going to be an additional glow that we're going to do kind of like over top of our entire sequence here. Here's what we can do. This is our footage. So we're going to add in another glow node. Let's do that. We're going to take the glow from the end of this merge sequence here. Okay, so let's go and view that real quick. And then this glow over top of everything is going to, oh, another thing that I needed to do was say effect only on these. Perfect. Although I'm not sure. Yeah, that's good. So now this glow right here, let's go ahead and select effect only, and then we're gonna overall we're going to leave the tolerance at like about, let's do something like that, and then let's change the brightness here to like a 1.5. Oops. And then let's change the saturation here to about, I don't know, like a 0.8. And then we're going to change this size here to something really large, like a 600. And this is going to just create like a huge glow that we have going on. Let's see, about 600 is fine. But Mark, since it's your first time here, we do weekly live streams. We do CG streams over the weekend, and then on the midweek, I just started doing these VFX streams where we try to do different types of visual effects shots live. So make sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on that. Also, join the Discord. Links in the description, by the way. I don't know how many of you guys here are new or not, but join the Discord. That way you don't miss out on any of the streams we're doing or videos that I post. And also, we post all our finished work there when we do our CG renders. 64 subs remaining for that goal. Yes, 64. Let's go. Oh, wow. We're climbing, guys. We're climbing. All right, so now that we got this glow here, we're actually going to merge this back over on top of our entire sequence. We're going to want to do this kind of before this section, okay? Because this is where things go to the background, and then they also go to our foreground dude. So if we take this glow, we're going to actually just move him all the way up here. And let's see. I'm going to want to use another merge node in this section here. And kind of ideally, we want to have this glow kind of like overseeing everything. I'm going to plug this glow into the A input here. That's going to kind of add a glow to everything. I'm going to change this glow here to something like a plus. Yeah, I think that's good. And now that's going to use our actual fire over top of our entire scene here. And the amount of blur that we give this, it's kind of how sharp our image is going to be. I think something like a 500 should be good. So now if we go view our end result here, it's going to add a glow over top of our entire sequence that we can turn on and off. It's pretty heavy, guys. It's pretty heavy. And that's just going to add kind of like that realistic glow that we need in our sequence in order to sell the realism. We do have some sharp edges on the outside of the fire and whatnot that we can fix. Oh, thank you so much, Mark. Really appreciate that. And I hope to see you at some of these future streams. Okay, there are a few things that I want to adjust. First is before this exposure here, I want to add a little more contrast to our sequence. So let's add a color in here and add a little more contrast to it. Make it a little more poppy there. It's quite laggy doing this on this computer. Let's see, without the exposure, what that looks like. Actually matches a little bit better. I'm gonna turn off that exposure now that I have that contrast in there. It works a little bit better. Okay, so with that being said, we now have like this whole section done here. Let's do a few more things to our sequence. I don't have... A nice thing to do is, like, if you had lens flares like an OFX plugin, you can drop those in as well. On this computer, I don't have OFX. I have it on my work computer. That's why sometimes I'll do it on our CG streams, because that's actually where I do those, is at my work, not at my house. So if you do have that, then you can drop in some stuff like that and some beautiful lens flares. But for us right now, we're gonna have to make do without it. And try to make it look good without lens flares, guys. I'm gonna blur the matte here a little bit. Kind of want to drop in an erode node. Do erode fast. Kind of eat into it a little bit. The other thing we could do is over in our actual sequence here, we can blur our radius a little bit. Not much. We don't want to blur it too much. Probably just ever so slightly. And now if I go render that again, it's going to replace our current matte that we have, but then we could just reload it inside of our Nuke comp, and that way we don't have to re-import anything. Also, we're going to need to do some cleanup work inside of here because some of the waste disappears at that one part. One thing I wish that you could do a little bit better inside of DaVinci is yeah, we're definitely getting that hard edge that we got going on there. Oh, actually, I think I know what's going on. That's fine. Let's take this dilate node, and instead of doing a negative number, do a positive number. Where is that dark edge coming from? What am I missing here, guys? VFX. Yes. I'm getting a hard edge. And I think it has to do with this matte edge here. Let's go check out our roto again. Just render that out and see what that's gonna do for us. I'm gonna have to wrap up here soon, so I'm trying to move pretty quickly. I got a real job to go to, guys. Maybe try a light wrap instead. Well, I can definitely do light wrap as well. The issue that I'm having actually is that I don't know. I don't know what part this fringing is happening on, because that's where the issue is. And it's like, for instance, I could drop in an edge blur and target those areas. Oh, see, that's the weird part, right? So like, if I brighten the edge of what this edge blur is doing, it's not doing that section. Why? Why do you torment me? Because like, sure, I can add in a light wrap. I think though, if I take this and then let's just plug it into that. Overall, I change the intensity. It is weird that it actually works in that area. Fine. I should do... It's like I'm trying to cover it up. We can use extend maybe. So I did that. I tried eroding. Here, I'll just show you guys what I've done so far. It's like, so if I do a dilate or erode or whatever like that, it just makes that edge thicker. And I can even just do this on the actual mask that I'm using here. No matter where that mask is, it's creating a hard line. And so I'm probably have something whack in my comp, because if that's there, that's the key there, then this over here, no, obviously not. Why would I even adjust that? That's stupid. Essentially, maybe the issue, this guy. Yes. Okay. I'm onto something. I think I figured it out. Let's take this merge node that we created, this beautiful merge node that is causing us problems. We're going to move this to the bottom and just add the glow in after everything. Who gives a crap? There we go. There we go, guys. I fixed it. I fixed the problem. It was this, I think it was just doubling the amount there. That was weird, guys. Okay. But you were right. We could totally use a light wrap or something like that. Let's just... And that will definitely localize it to like a specific glows in like specific areas. That's not a bad idea. So let's definitely do that. Why not? Makes it look better. We will need to fix our roto here. Overall, it's not too bad. It's not too shabby. Let's see. This looks like in playback. Or am I not going to get playback today? Is it going to be a playback in about a week? Is that what we're getting here? Yeah, that's not going to happen. Okay, overall though, like if you're in a burning building, you're probably going to want some other things adjusted. For instance, I gotta actually clean this up because otherwise it's going to drive me crazy. Yeah, it turns out like it's the simplest problems are or the simplest solutions is the method in which you need to fix your issues, right? Nuke can be pretty slow, especially when it comes to rendering previews. 1000%. Oh, okay, so I came from After Effects. It was I think everyone does, right? You start in After Effects and then you go and try to learn how to do things elsewhere. And so now I'm in Nuke. But before I was in Nuke, I was in After Effects, and it was like you get playback much quicker. Like it's actually kind of crazy. So it took me a bit to learn or to get used to Nuke's slower playback speeds. And I still don't quite know why it's slower. I just know that you have to have patience for goodness. That's what I tell myself anyways. Kind of just fixing some of these windows that are bothering me. Okay. That's cool. I've been wanting to put like a fire in front of him. So let's go ahead and do that as well. Go ahead and save this as is as we're moving along here, so that way we're not losing our work. I did download I think it's burning debris, so let's go ahead and drop that in here. And it's not linear. I'll be honest, I don't know what the difference is between half of these because I don't ever use this this config file. So I'm probably selecting the wrong stuff. But alas, we will make it look good. Don't worry. Don't you worry. I'm going to create a new card in this area right here. And we're just going to rename it to Fire 1. It's going to use this with a time offset of, hopefully that doesn't, yeah, that's fine. Great. So now we need to take our card that we have here and we're going to just scale it down a little bit. A little further, actually. And we'll plug this into our scene. Amazing. And cool thing is, we could just place this wherever we want to. I think that'll work pretty nicely. Let's adjust our saturation on this guy. Before we do that, of course, we want to unpremult it. And then we're going to premult afterwards. But we're going to adjust our saturation to kind of match the rest of our fire in our scene. Probably use a grade node as well to kind of change the white point. Something like that should work fine for us. This is where we're going to want to position this properly. I'm thinking, oh yeah, it's floating in the air. That's what our biggest issue is. When it's kind of interact with that ground. That's pretty nice. So any like sparks that we want to have, we can actually just place as cards, and so that way it kind of like moves more in 3D as the camera's coming past it. That might be an issue though, so let's see. I also don't want it to be so far away. I kind of like this smoldering ground here. I just feel like it's not quite as bright as it should be. Use a merge node here and then just merge it on top of itself. Let's use a corner pin also to like really get this to line up with what we want. Go back to this section over here that we're viewing, so that way we know what we're doing and what we're working with. If we select this corner pin, let's scale this down. I feel like it's just a little too large for what we're going for. I'm gonna unpre-multiply this as well, and then pre-mult it again after our grading is done. But our exposure, we could just lift up a little bit. Don't want it to feel like a square, so, you know, just kind of I have to probably, let's see, let's adjust the corner pin here. It just feels the orientation is not correct. And this is where like adding in some like burnt ground and stuff might be really nice as well. Similar thing to what we did with this kind of like smoldering section on the ground. Might be nice. Let's see if I have any on their website. Again, I'm using a lot of ActionVFX assets. You can find all of these in the video description here. So just click on this link here. You can see a lot of the assets that I'm using, as well as the practice footage that I'm using as well. So if that is something that you're interested in, then go grab those. See some fire embers here. Sideways Ember 6. It's my favorite. I've used this in so many films. It's actually ridiculous. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to here and let's find like this is a good spot here. Let's create a card. And this card is going to be our embers. plug that into the scene. If we go view our scene now, the only issue we're going to have is that, yeah, where's our card at? That's the big issue we're having right now. I don't know where my card is, guys. Where'd it go? Oh, it's like all the way up there. Yeah, so it's adding these sparks into the shot, which is cool. Concern is that he's going to be placed in front of them. And that is actually something we could fix. I think that's something we could fix. So, actually, yeah. Why didn't I do this to begin with? Totally, right? Let's actually fix this. So, we can use... Ooh, this might be interesting. So, inside of this scene render, we basically need this dude to live within inside of that world. I've never done this before, so bear with me. I'm thinking this might work. Let's go to this guy. Right, our camera tracker. And let's find something that's on the same plane as him. So do create a card here. And that's going to be our card. And we're going to use this undistort node. If I plug this into the bottom of this light wrap, which is where everything's going to be merged anyways, let's actually turn that off so that way we can make sure this is working. We're going to use this lens distortion on that light wrap. It's going to be undistorting the shot. And I'm going to use a project to 3D card shader, essentially. And we'll plug this directly into our camera so it's constantly moving with the camera. Because we don't want it stationary. It's like the whole shot. It's going to always be moving. And then we're going to plug that into our card. And then this into our scene. Is it the camera? Is that why? Nope. Is it the footage? Yes. Oh, it's the light wrap specifically. That's fine. Could live without the light wrap for right now. I just want to see if this works. I'm more curious if this works. So yeah, so now we've got our dude in 3D. Oh my god, guys. So now we've got our guy. And I have a feeling that wherever we drag him, he stays the same size as to the camera, right? So we can animate this on the Z axis here. So we'll set a keyframe here. And oh my gosh. I just came up with a new method for doing this. I'm wondering if actually we could feed this as a matte. Is there a way to do crypto matte inside of the scanline renderer? Shader, deep, drop 0, alpha samples, node, multi-dip shaders. Scanline renderer. It's because like I want this card and this alpha specifically. Interesting. I'm wondering if there's a way to do that. But anyways, that way we actually can have him in front of everything. weird how it brightens him up though. Not quite sure why it's doing that. Oh, because of all the glows that we're doing. Interesting. Okay. Okay. Interesting concept. We're not going to do it this way. I think for right now we can live with the embers kind of like flying behind him. I do want to maybe have a merge node here, a transform node, and then we can just, that way we can have multiple embers in our sequence. Let's do a time offset as well. Something like 800 should work. Okay. And that's going to be to that card right there. I think overall this isn't bad, guys. There's things that we can always try to fix about it. I'm going to add a roto node in here, but not bad for 2 hours, honestly. I'm not gonna lie. This is a shot that I would probably ask for more time on if I were working on this professionally, but overall in 2 hours from tracking, well, actually from creating the visual effects plates to finishing it, not bad. Let's grab this fire asset here. I don't like the idea of seeing the bottom of it near the end of the shot. I kind of want it to be sticking up. It's also floating. It's not good. I think something like that would be good. Let's see. I'm gonna actually add some grain into this shot. Let's already looks like it's denoised, I'm not gonna lie. Wondering if they denoise the VFX plates for us. Okay, guys, probably gonna call it there. There's a few things that we could probably do in addition to this. Obviously, we'll probably want to have samples turned up a little bit on this. The other thing is, let's see. Add some embers, and then for this fire, actually, I'm curious. I'm gonna add a ZD focus to the fire because it's just so out of the camera view. I'm not actually sure if anybody actually knows this, please leave a comment below. How inside of the actual scanline renderer to do depth of field, because that is something that I have not actually been able to figure out. Set to 1 real quick, and then let's just adjust the size of this. Need to match kind of like the overall, kind of like the amount of defocus the ground has. Play with some of these settings. The Z defocus is a great tool, by the way. If you guys haven't messed around with it too much, get on it. It is super good. Nice. Okay. And then I'm actually going to copy paste that to our ground that we have back here, our smoldering ground. Just to help blend those things in a little bit more. For this fire here, merge this back on top of it. But I basically want to have a little extra glow on this section, so just do something like that, should be fine. Like 300. Just add that little extra edge to it. The other thing is this fire just needs to be a little bit. Oof. I think that's the issue, is that the glow is going off the edge here. Right? Your 150 should be fine then. Perfect. Actually, that just adds that like nice little extra glow to that front fire there as he's crawling past it. Okay, guys, I'm going to call it there. It is 10 o'clock, which is my time to go, but thank you guys so much for joining this midweek live stream. You can find all of these assets and more at the ActionVFX website. Just go ahead and click on the link in the description. On this particular video, if you just scroll down, you can see this link right here. Go ahead and follow that. It'll take you to their main website. I'll just show you. It'll take you to their main website, and by the way, I made this helicopter shot. You can find all of the practice footage that we used under this here. It's free, so go ahead and just go grab it. Practice with it, make some cool looking shots. Share those shots with me. We have a Discord. So furthermore, if you click on the link here to our Discord, you can share all of those things under our section in there. Let's see if I can actually pull this up. It'll be a create with Connor thing, and then under here you'll see all of our rules that we have, but go to our showcase section and upload your work to this section here. It would be great to see all of your guys' renditions of your guys' renders and all the stuff that you guys are creating. Furthermore, on the ActionVFX website, if you do want to use any of those fire assets, you can find all of those in the recommended section. So the practice footage is right here. And if you find the shot that we're working on, which is man crawling in a burning room, you can click on that. It'll tell you all the specs, the resolution, the format that everything is at. But if you scroll down, it has all these assets that we use. You can go ahead and purchase those and use those for this shot, but then also future shots. You have that footage forever. So use it for as many things that you want. And show them to me. Show me what you guys have created. This was what I created here in 2 hours, which it was fun. It was a good time. So, how to add? You had a question. I'm sorry. This is in the way. How to add burn marks. Oh, right. If we do have textures for that, which I don't right now, we can do the same thing that we did with this on the ground here, but using burn marks, we can actually use like a black overlay and multiply that into the ground. So you can do the same exact thing we did with the fire, but adding in burn marks there. And we would probably want to add burn marks into the walls and stuff. So I guess we'll see. If I am feeling up to it, if enough of you guys ask for it, I can do another live stream tomorrow, and maybe we could do a part 2 of this shot. This, just being the first half of the shot here, maybe we can continue working on some burn mark stuff tomorrow and continue working on this shot. But that's essentially how you would do it, is that you would add in some kind of like texturing that would be on the ground, and then and even some shading on the walls and stuff like that, because these walls would not be perfectly white as is. But anyways, if you guys have any more questions, either leave a comment below or, hey, join the Discord. There's a lot of very talented artists there. Feel free to ask your questions, and we can help you out. But thank you so much for joining the live stream, and I will see you guys this coming weekend with a new CG render at the very least. All right, talk to you guys later.